welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex. Bajo, this is our last normal episode for the year before our epic Christmas special.
That's right, Hex, although there is nothing normal about it because new consoles.
Yes, we finally get to hit start on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One.
But a system is nothing without its games, so we also have a look at some launch titles, including Dead Rising 3 on Xbox One.
Also on the X-Bone, we'll step into the sword and sandal epic that is Ryse, Son of Rome.
Plus, we see what the PS4 can do with Killzone Shadowfall.
But before all that, can you guess the game for this week? So, not just the game, Bajo, but what console did that game help launch?
I'm gonna go read the news.
Oh, okay.
Good game.
Canadian Jeff Wilms has won Kong off the Donkey Kong World Championships for the second year running. Wilms claimed victory in the three-day event, posting a winning score of just over 1,096,000 points to claim the $4,500 grand prize. Hank Chin, the current world record holder for the highest score, came in third place, while previous record holder Steve Wiebe trailed behind in fifth. Researchers at the University of Glasgow have conducted a study to determine if exposure to video games and TV impact children's behaviour. The study, in the form of a survey, tasked the parents of over 13,000 children to report on their TV and video gaming habits and any noted behavioural problems. The results showed that children aged 5 who watched 3 or more hours of TV a day showed a slight increase in behavioural issues. However, the playing of games had no effect on either boys or girls. And finally, PrimeSense, the creators of the 3D sensor technology behind the Xbox Kinect, has been acquired by Apple. Reports say Apple purchased the Tel Aviv-based company for $345 million. No information was given on how Apple plans to use the technology.
Good game.
Next gen is officially current gen, Bajo, and current gen is now last gen.
Yes, and also current gen means next gen. It's a confusing system.
Yes, either way, we're ecstatic to have new consoles. Let's start with the Xbox One. It's a pretty basic design. The rectangular paneling consistent throughout is supposed to reflect the 16:9 aspect ratio, which is interesting. Other than that, it's a big black box.
It's a bit of a doorstop, isn't it? But I like how 80s it looks.
Yeah, it's heavy too, and it has an external power brick, so I can't imagine where all that weight is coming from. But, you know, I hope this means more stability and no issues with overheating.
Yeah, it's very quiet, isn't it? And that's a good thing because the first batch of 360s came with their own wind tunnel. I love the new controller, Hex. It's only had small refinements from the previous 360 one, but it instantly feels good.
Yeah, overall it's nothing that new, which I'm happy about because I always really liked the 360 controller design. But there is something new under the surface: trigger rumble.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how developers will make use of it. I played a little bit of Forza 5 and you definitely notice the rumble when a car brakes and grips around corners. But let's talk about the new Kinect, which is quite a chunky little brick itself. I've always liked the voice and body recognition ideas behind the Kinect, but I felt like the 360 version never quite got there. This new Kinect has a few upgrades and it's now packing a HD camera. This improves the video and its response time, which I noticed work well with Leaning and Battlefield.
And it's cool that when you sit down, the Kinect recognises you almost instantly.
There I am.
That said, when I took the console home and I had a bunch of friends over, any dude that sat down in front of it, it would just load up your profile, so clearly it's not that accurate.
The user interface is very similar to the Windows 8 Metro style, which I think is pretty ugly, but I can't deny that it's functional and very snappy and responsive.
I really like it. I mean, it may appear cluttered at first, but I think the aim is to present you with a whole range of options and stuff to do from the moment you load it up. To me, the focus of this console's OS is multitasking. By snapping, you can place apps, websites, and TV on one side of the screen while your game is on the other. And once you get your head around it, it is pretty easy to pause, resume, and do other things.
Yeah, I liked how much you could customize. It just makes it a bit more personal.
The console also has an HDMI in pass-through. Microsoft very much want you to do everything on your TV with their device. The TV services on offer with the Australian Xbone are fairly limited. We get like half the channels that US gamers do, so if that's a feature you're really interested in, then you might want to check out what you actually get. There's also more of a social network focus with the user interface. The console is always recording the last 5 minutes of gameplay, and some games record special moments automatically, like completing a challenge mode in Dead Rising 3, for example.
5 minutes is a bit short and you can't record your own voice or party chat. If you want your voice in there, you have to go and do a commentary track on the clip later. But I thought the quality was pretty good for online.
Now, before we talk about the PS4, let's have a look at some of the Xbox One's launch titles.
Yes, and with Dead Rising 3, nothing lasts forever. Dead Rising 3, otherwise known as a zombie flattening simulator, takes us out of the mall and puts us in the city. You play as Nick, who is a mechanic caught up in the latest outbreak. Him and his crew are on a deadline to get out of town before the zombie cleansing bomb hits.
Wonder if anybody's in there.
This isn't a huge departure for the Dead Rising games. In fact, if you like the last couple, then I think you'll probably enjoy this about as much. The world itself is quite small though. It feels kind of like a giant mall that you can drive through with no roof.
It is nice to be in a proper city setting though.
Yeah, that is true. I was just expecting more variety in the city itself. It's really just a bunch of roads with some connecting sections, and I just wanted it all to be bigger and more open and some classic zombie locales, maybe go out to the suburbs, but no.
Yeah, well, there are plenty of shops you can go into though, often to hide. I think Dead Rising really is about making your own fun. There are just so many weapons you can make. These range from shock hammers to an electrified blanket hat. You're always looking for something to build, and the game encourages you to do so in quite a few ways. And yet, you don't need a workbench. You can create at any time, which I think adds a lot to the sequel. There's also vehicle creation, and while we didn't end up exploring that too much, it's a nice addition. And each area is full of collectibles and gear and blueprints to make weapons. They're a bit tricky to find amongst all the corpses though.
Yeah, I'm happy to say it's great we see so many corpses now that don't disappear like in last gen, and I think we have new hardware to thank for that. I think we can also thank new hardware for the wonderful Walking Dead moments this game has when you come around a corner and you see this. So many zombies.
I've never seen so many zombies on screen at once. And zombie density changes a fair bit. You'll often have to literally carve a path through hundreds of them simply to move to the next road. The dead are not that much of a threat during the day, but at night they get more aggressive and tougher.
As you progress through the storyline, the game will introduce biker gangs, tougher mutated zombies, and character-specific ones, such as Gridiron Zombie. The zombies die in many different ways, but I just wish there were more of those character-specific ones, more challenge in that way.
It's great to have all of this going on screen at once, but without a strong and varied art style to the world, moving from point to point just gets old fast.
Yeah, the world all does look quite similar, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know what didn't get old though? The fashion!
You really are indeed gigantic, sir. Ah, not a sir, man.
This game has now hit a Saints Row level of crazy outfit experimentation, which leads to some hilarious moments and cutscenes.
The name we're looking for is Nicole White.
What about my Zombrex? I could die, man.
First things first. They look okay to me.
There are heaps of reference tutorials, but the game doesn't do a great job of explaining how the mechanics work to you.
Yeah, it pretty much assumes that you've played the last couple of games, doesn't it? But I do like the way they reward you for your efforts. Saving civilians, doing challenges.
I need a meat cleaver and a chainsaw.
It all awards you with precious XP used to unlock a vast tree of skills and upgrades.
There is a lot about the Dead Rising formula that I really like, Hex, but there's so much that frustrates me too.
These people were just looking for safety. You've no right to kill them.
I love how this twisted world is full of twisted characters. It kind of feels like everyone is over-characterized to the point where they're making fun of stereotypes and cliches, and that's quite clever.
Shut up, they're gonna hear us.
Why don't you calm the hell down, asshole? As long as they're outside, we got nothing to worry about.
But then they do some really weird stuff that just feels out of place.
Yeah, I don't understand why that policewoman gets off on violence and USB drives.
The last thing we need is evidence of our rescue.
I love USB drives too, but not that much.
I mean, I can understand a 32 gig one.
Also, time limits make a return to the missions, which I'm so not a fan of. I just hate being restricted in that way.
Yeah, normally I'd be right with you, but I softened on it a little bit with this iteration, and I don't know, I just felt like I had enough time to do them, and It was part of the living, breathing world, and I chose whether to interact with it or not.
I do think bosses have a bit too much health though.
Yeah. It is infuriating, but I also think it's there to balance out the co-op, which really is the way that this game should be played, and sadly we couldn't test that out at the time of review, but I imagine it would make it instantly more fun in every aspect of this game.
All in all, I think it's great that there's no loading except for when you die, and it definitely feels like a step forward for the series, but not really a leap, so I'm giving it 7.
I liked all the Kinect integration. You can yell out certain things like, "You're crazy," in a boss fight. It only understands me half the time though, but still, I like all that's in there. But this really is a big game of fetch quests, and I didn't have a great time, so I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Do you want me to off you? So you don't gotta suffer.
Okay, well, next up, let's take a look at another launch title for the Xbox One, Ryse, Son of Rome. I was a little dubious about Ryse at first. I mean, my first memory of this game is that it was announced as a Kinect-only title for the 360, which is a bit of a worry, but now on Xbox One, that's far from what we ended up with.
Yes, this third-person action adventure through the battlefields of ancient Rome is an incredibly cinematic experience. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, Rome is the perfect setting to show off what this console can do visually, isn't it? Stunning use of light, breathtaking vistas, the detail in the textures, the glint of metal plate armor.
Bring down the Wicker Man!
Okay, once you get past all that, you can try and focus on what this game is actually all about.
You play Marius, a Roman general who fights his way through a bitter tale of honor, betrayal, and revenge. It's your typical Roman saga, really. Seeking justice for the death of his family, Marius must battle foes both on the field and in the arena to exact his vengeance.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's basically Gladiator the video game, which at first I thought was a pretty poor effort at storytelling, but it actually really works, and I had a great time with this. Let's talk about the combat, because you're pretty much thrown into the battle from the get-go.
I thought it was slick. It has such a nice flow to it. You can choose if you want to get damage, health, focus, or XP from kills by switching between these options on the D-pad. But in order to reap the benefits from kills, you need to end every single fight in a quick-time execution, which got really tedious for me. You just see that same animation over and over again. It gets old fast.
Yeah, but you do unlock more of those, and I quite liked trying to learn and predict them so that you could time a legendary execution. Plus, you know, he does get creative with the environment on occasion with a few of those finishes. I thought it was great the way enemies really overwhelm you, often attacking within a split second of each other, keeping you on your toes with counters. And heavier enemies will come at you with unblockable attacks in amongst it all. It's nicely stressful. You know, I found I actually had to learn some of these fights and have a couple of goes at them.
Yes, but when all else fails, you can use your focus attack and do the most hilarious turbo gladiator kick I've ever seen.
Yeah, I use that a lot just because it's so hilarious to watch them go flying. The combat animations in general were just perfect, I thought. The sword swings and the shield pushes, the way Marius staggers back from a blocked attack, and you can't deny those executions look amazing.
Yes, appropriately gruesome for a Roman battlefield. There is some nice variety to the locations you fight in. And Marius makes his way through the environment well, with subtle color indicators to guide you through the level without you even realizing it. He climbs ladders with just one arm, which I thought was pretty badass. But there are objective-based battles such as freeing prisoners or ballista sections, which seem to drag on way too long. It's like they just give you a task and then ask you to repeat it for 15 minutes, and it just feels lazy.
More effective against large...
Yeah, there is a bit of padding going on there, which is a shame, but I thought the formation stuff was just incredible.
Legionaries!
Calling your troops into line, marching forward, taking turtle formation when a volley of arrows is fired. It's so quintessentially Roman and I loved it.
Hold formation!
And it's not overused either.
Yeah, I love the way if one gets hit on the front line, then another quickly takes his place.
Yeah, I really love the siege battles as well. You're using ballistae, fending off invaders and kicking ladders off walls with enemies still attached to them, destroying siege towers. It's like living out all the best bits of ancient history that I remember from school in a video game.
I thought the commands you issue to your troops worked well, and the Kinect voice commands were surprisingly well integrated. It's a nice feature, but it is a little redundant because it's always so much quicker to use the controller.
You know, I didn't think I would use the voice commands, but I totally did. You know, I was always so fixated on the rhythm of buttons in those tough combat sections that I did actually find it easier just to use my voice. Although I did find it slightly hilarious because, you know, these Roman soldiers are so butch and badass, hacking down foes with angry cries, and then there's my girly voice over the top going, "Catapult fire!" It just takes a little bit of the authenticity out of the experience.
There is some nice sound design overall, I thought.
Yeah, and likewise the mocap and voice acting is all top-notch with all that beautiful stately dialogue. I'm sure the story may not be anything original, but there's enough there to put the fire of vengeance in your belly and feel for Marius's cause.
They do a nice job of mixing history with poetic license, and a decent dose of Roman mythology for good measure. Plus, it's hard to take your eyes off all the beautiful lines and imperfections on the characters' faces during those cutscenes.
The massive barbarian army has swarmed across the Empire, wreaking havoc.
That detail. I did expect the loading to be a little bit better for next gen though.
Yeah, it wasn't flawless, but then again, we weren't on the final code. There are also a few annoyances like silly vision obscuring text warnings. I mean, that message could have just as easily been conveyed with a vocal cue rather than blinding my view of the battlefield, but other than that, no major complaints from me. There is also a multiplayer mode which we couldn't take online with our code, unfortunately, but we had to go at some of the solo arena battles, which are basically gladiator wave modes. Not really something I'd get into, but I'm keen to check the online stuff out.
Yeah, me too, because we have so much fun with games like War of the Roses, and it feels like this might be similar. Final thoughts, Hex?
You know, I didn't expect to like this as much as I did. I dug the combat, finishes and all, and each element felt so well thought out to play to that Roman setting. Historically recognised Lady Warrior Boudica even makes an appearance, which I thought was awesome.
I've come too far to let you stand in my way.
I'm giving it 8.5.
I think out of all of the Xbox One launch titles, this is the most interesting. It's a brand new IP, it's trying new things. I just think it was a little too restrictive and QuickTime based for my liking. And while the campaign is around 6 or 7 hours long, I do feel like a lot of that is just filler. So I'm gonna give it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Okay, Bajo, time to play with the PS4. Now, we haven't had as much time with this as we did with the Xbox One. In fact, we only got to access most of the features just a few hours ago, so these are still very early impressions. The console itself is a fair bit smaller than the Xbox. It's quite a slim, elegant design with the angles and the neon light. You know, I think this design just gives it a personality that the Xbox doesn't have.
It's weird how these new consoles both have that two-tone look of shiny black split with a matte finish. It's almost as if both companies consulted the same designer.
Yeah, awkward. I have to say though, I find these teeny tiny touch-sensitive buttons infuriating though, Bajo.
Yeah, tiny buttons can go away. I know you can use the controller to turn this on and off, but I just like a good old-fashioned on-off button. Bring back the 2600 buttons, I say. Big hard switches. That's how I like to turn my consoles on and off.
I'm really digging the new controller. Instead of the old rounded thumbsticks, the new ones have little ridges around the edges, which means no more sweaty thumbs slipping off them. Plus, they're a bit further apart so your thumbs don't knock together.
It's so snug in your hand too. Plus they've included a headset you can plug into the controller this time, which is a big deal for standardizing online chat. PS4 has finally caught up with a party chat system, so it's no longer game specific. You can chat to friends no matter what they're doing on the console. There's also a touchpad on the face of the controller, which worked fine for swiping to activate things in-game. And it's interesting that PS4 games will be able to make use of this. There's no touch function on the Xbox One controller.
And there's a light on it with different colours to denote different players in multiplayer, and some games will use it to signal waning health, that sort of thing.
It's a bit silly though, isn't it? Because you can't actually see the colour when you're gaming, unless you hold the controller like that.
Yeah. Unless you see the reflection of it in your TV.
Oh, okay. That sounds annoying.
I think it's also pretty cool that they've got a dedicated share button. I mean, nobody wants to jump through hoops to share screens and videos on social media, so I was glad to see it's nice and easy here.
You can also live stream your games or watch other people play, but we haven't been able to test that out fully. Disappointingly, the PS4 user interface isn't radically different. They've stuck with that cross-media bar.
I think you'll find it's called a dynamic menu now, Bajo.
Much more next gen. But all it really means is your installed games and apps are on a lower layer now. I think it is streamlined though, and it is quick to cycle to the screen you want to be in, but it isn't as intuitive as the Xbox One user interface.
I just wish it had been given more of a refresher and a redesign. You know, aesthetically it's still so similar to the old one, and I just find it so uninviting. Thankfully though, multitasking between games and menus is now super speedy. No need to reload the game every time you want to tweak a sound or display option.
One of the biggest features with the PS4 is remote play on the Vita. We took it for a quick spin in Killzone, and it works great.
Yeah, it certainly makes the Vita more tempting now. We don't have the PlayStation 4 camera to test out, but we did try out some of the voice commands with the headset. PlayStation. It recognized the words we were saying most of the time, but it felt a lot slower than doing it with the controller, so I doubt I'd use it.
And finally, it will now cost you money to play games online with the PlayStation 4. You will have to subscribe to PlayStation Plus, but just like with Xbox One, you only need one account per console.
Well, that leads us nicely into the biggest launch title for the PlayStation 4, Killzone Shadowfall. Deals with the ongoing conflict between the human-looking Vectans and the Helghast. They're the ones that look like space Nazis. Unlike the full-on invasions we saw in the previous games, there's an uneasy truce between the two races as they attempt to live together on the one planet. A giant wall separates the two races, with the Vectans living in gleaming high-tech cities, while the Helghast live in squalor.
Yes, neither side is happy about this truce, so there's a lot of guerrilla warfare on both sides of the wall.
Sorry, sir, just a formality.
You pick up the gun of Lucas Kellen, a member of an elite group of soldiers called Shadow Marshals.
Sir, suspects are holed up in the room below.
The sci-fi settings were the real hero of the game for me. The PS4 powers some seriously beautiful locations. Next-gen slow pans, Bajo. The Vectan cities tap into that idyllic future where everything's shiny and pristine, and the scope is just boggling. You can see kilometers of cityscapes stretching away into the horizon. But in spite of the poverty of the locations, it was actually the Helghast areas that floored me the most. There is a definite Blade Runner vibe at play, as towering structures are fused with Asian aesthetics. These huge environments really delivered on that sense of being there for me.
Yeah, there were some great looking set pieces here. Killzone has always been known for pushing visuals, and this is no exception. They've hit that perfect stylized balance between lighting and particle effects that adds a cinematic, film-like quality to the motion. And it's nice to see such a high level of detail too. Although, what was with the fire hex? That's a 2D sprite, 2D fire.
Yeah, I mean, did they take that from Doom on the PS1?
I know, right? But overall, this is such a beautiful game, and it's just such a shame that what you're actually doing in it, we've done a million times before. It feels so familiar. The core gameplay is just going through the motions.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but you can't point to any one aspect of it and say, wow, that's new.
And you know, normally I wouldn't stress about there not being much destruction in a game like this, but for some reason here it particularly stuck out. Whenever I used explosives, everything just came out disappointingly untouched. It's kind of like in the future, everything is made from some sort of magical material called unbreakable tanium or something.
Yeah, it's all about look but don't touch, isn't it? I mean, when I'm exploring a level for the first time, I always just shoot at everything to see how well it shatters. But all we get here are a few bullet holes, which is surprisingly last gen. I did like your little robot buddy though, who flies around and does your bidding. He also drops shields that block enemy bullets but lets yours pass through. Magic shield.
Not the best magic though, is it? I found often it would just completely misjudge my height and sink most of the shield into the ground. My feet were safe, they were fine, but not my face. In fact, it happens so much that I was actually relieved when it managed to materialize properly.
Well, there are a few other things that your robot buddy can do. It can attack enemies for you and hack terminals, plus it can create makeshift zip lines for you. They look great, but like the rest of the game, it's very scripted about where it lets you use it.
The game does hold your hand tightly, doesn't it? Early on, you're led painfully through the slow tutorial mission.
Wait here, don't move until I tell you.
Come on guys, it's 2013, I know how to take cover in a shooter. At least give me the option to skip it. And by the start of the second mission, I still didn't have a gun. So when I took this guy down, I thought maybe I'll finally get one, but no, it just disappears because the game wasn't ready to let me have one yet. Why?
Once the shooting eventually began, I had mixed feelings about it. On the plus side, there's a good range of weapons with stuff like shotguns for close encounters, rocket launchers, and scoped rifles for ranged sniping. Like many shooters, it only lets you carry 2 guns at once, and this would be fine, except it never lets you put down your default machine gun. You're stuck with it for the whole game.
Yeah, I don't understand the point of that. It's such a strange game design decision, and the gun isn't even very good.
At least they handled the health better. Like most shooters, Killzone gives you regenerating health, but it also has adrenaline packs. So if you don't think you can make it to cover in time, you just inject yourself in the middle of a gunfight. This lets you ignore your wounds and slows down time to a crawl so you can pick off your enemies with style.
Slow-mo makes everything better, doesn't it? At least they mixed up the locations a fair bit in this game. I enjoyed flying around in space.
Yeah, I love that they went for the silence of space. It makes for such a peaceful contrast to the rest of the game's gunfire, although I could have done without the platforming bits.
Yeah, platforming should be banned from shooters, I think. My biggest gripe with the game, though, is the brainless enemies. This almost should have been a zombie game for all the smarts these guys showed. So often they just stroll towards me with no thought for their own lives. In the entire 8-hour campaign, there was only one moment where I was truly surprised, and that's where one of them lay down. Watch out!
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it? Really smart AI makes all the difference in a shooter, and even their animations are a bit awkward here at times on top of that.
The reason we're going on so much about the AI is that I've always felt like in previous Killzones it's been really good, but there are even points in this game where I don't think the enemies even realised I was shooting them. They're just strolling along like Mr. Troll-a-Lol. It is common for launch titles to feel a bit rushed in parts, and this is very much like that, I think.
Yeah, but you know, as much as I love how great this game looks, I would have liked less time spent on that and more time just making those enemy engagements a bit more interesting.
Yeah, me too. Because that's what you're doing for the whole game. You're engaging enemies. Make it fun. Fun first. Unfortunately, multiplayer wasn't live at the time of review, so we couldn't test that out, which is such a shame because we're hearing really good things. But as a single-player experience, this is adequate but pretty unremarkable, so I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I just loved those sci-fi backdrops, Bajo. Now I want someone to make some cool Mass Effect-style RPG on PS4 that looks as good as this.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Killzone is that it ultimately is just more of the same. I guess we're just disappointed because, you know, you expect gameplay innovation with next gen, but, you know, this is still a solid shooter, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
This has been a pretty soft generation change, hasn't it? With the last generation, we were going from standard definition to high definition, and that was a massive change. And before that, we were going from CD to DVD, and before that, we were going from 8-bit to 16-bit to cartridge. They were all really big changes. This change feels more like everything's just kind of improved and been tweaked slightly.
Overall, it hasn't been the greatest of launches, has it? I mean, the bulk of the lineup for both consoles have just been next-gen versions of PS3 and 360 games.
I guess the real jump with this generation is all those underlying features of each console, such as streaming your games or capturing and sharing content.
Yeah, both consoles seem to have made sharing your gaming a pretty big feature, haven't they? But you know what, Bajo? After 8 years, I'm just happy to have next-gen consoles in my house so I can just ponder the possibilities of what this new and faster tech will mean for the future.
Yeah, me too. Out of both consoles, I think we can agree there's no clear winner. It's a pretty even playing field.
Yes, and a lot of playing we shall do.
Good game.
So, did you guess this week's game and the console it helped launch?
That's how you make a button.
Yep, we know. It was Clockwork Knight, released in 1995. You played as Pepper, a toy soldier who is deeply in love with a clockwork princess. When she's kidnapped by an unknown force, you start your adventure to rescue your true love. And it was a launch title for the Sega Saturn in the US and Europe.
Next week, it's our final episode of the year and a 1-hour Christmas extravaganza.
Yes, and we'll need that full hour too, Bajo, with a look back at the last generation of console gaming and our annual Good Game Awards.
Plus, we look at some games as well, including 2 big races, Need for Speed Rivals and Forza 5.
We also have 2 handheld titles, Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, and from Media Molecule, Tearaway.
So until next time, Bajo out.
Hex out.
I'm stressing about where to put my new consoles. I have no space for them.
Oh, you need to build something.
Yeah.
Custom, baby.
I could just throw the old ones out.